All right, hell yeah. So we used that scraper and we did a pretty good job of kind of cleaning it up. And I kind of learned something is like you could treat that almost like a weld bead, and I could put like another bead in, um, you know, and so I think the fabric kind of maybe reinforces it, even though I don't think the fabric gets stiff though. No, actually, the fabric does get fairly stiff. And so it's kind of a lightweight way to make the fabric stiff and to fill in gaps where you actually have a filler material and then that stuff. And that happens a lot in fiberglass where you have some sort of strength material like cotton. I mean, and in our case, it's just cotton. Um, but you can shred that up. You can make it into strips, and then you can coat it with the sticky stuff. And hell yeah. And then even just layering the discs, that seemed to work out pretty good. And yeah, so it's kind of fascinating. I don't think I would come through here with like an angle grinder or anything. And so, but you could, because it's kind of, you would have to find a tool that can actually shred through that without, burning, melting, and being pretty fumy. Okay, hell yeah. So we're gonna fully seam, and then I want to be done with this interior. And then I think once I'm done with the interior, I'm ready to flip it and start painting the bottom, prepping the bottom for. And I shouldn't do it that way. I should paint the top first, just to figure out how the painting goes, and then just kind of figure out what I want. But I'll have to check on the amount of spray cans I have because I do want to use the spray paint, and I think the spray paint is going to be shinier, glossier, and potentially tougher on the bottom. I don't know why I think that. Well, I've just used it before. Between spray paint and then just paint on Rust-Oleum, I found that sometimes the paint on Rust-Oleum on metal can peel compared to that, that adherence of the spray can. I really like that. And I do a method where I spray it on and then paint it with just a little brush, just so you don't run and you don't get thick spots. And so, hell yeah. All right, so potentially I'm going to paint the bottom first. That might be the goal. Okay, hell yeah. And I could take a weight on it right now. Don't want to, though. I want to just hold my fingers. No, they say cross your fingers. We're going to do that. And hopefully we're under 75 pounds. There's no way I'm going to be under 70, though, because we last weighted at 62, and we've just used almost another 2 gallons of glue, it feels like. And we still need to glue what you see. We need to wet that out. So we need to wet everything out and then paint it. And that's going to add definitely weight. And so, I don't know. I'm going to just do I can rocker it, but yeah, it definitely feels like a chunk of change. It doesn't feel light. And so I'm going to do the same thing over here. Hopefully that's half the weight. And so, yeah. Same thing on this side. Yeah, it's stout. But what I found is that even my boat, that running the Grand Canyon fully loaded, it still has the same dynamics. And so it's what's in the water, what's not, what underfoot dynamics are, that's king compared to weight. And so crossing the fingers on just the idea that the weight's not going to be that big of a deal. So mainly what I really want to test is gloss bottom. And it's crazy because I could, you know what I mean? I vary between 165 and, maybe at the lowest 155. But, you could get your body weight 10 pounds less, and is that going to make the boat feel different? So it's really bizarre. Well, it's not. Like, this is where I will talk a little bit. One more minute, though, we're done. Going into an R1 design, I was like, hey, we have way more. We can do so much with the surface area that we have because we're not creating a boat that you can flip with a like an Eskimo roll or right with an Eskimo roll. And so and the boats are already 5 feet wide. They're already 10 feet long. Whether you want to make that shorter or bigger, whether you want to shrink that or even expand upon it, there is so much boat to work with. And so one of the aspects is like have one full side just be a slalom kayak, that kind of nice planing hole that's wide, that can turn easily, but then it can also have a long water line. And those water lines aren't too crazy. It's like, I don't think it's 12 feet. I'll have to double check. I always just thought it was like, let's say it's between 10 and 11 feet. Let's say it's between 10 and 12 feet. Let's say it is 12 feet. Well, they're very pointed ends. And the RMR Fat Cat's 12 feet. So literally, if you're going to put one surface into the water, you might as well have it a slalom kayak. And especially because we've made an edgeable boat, you can edge that into the water. So you could have a slalom kayak on your fast, strong side, and then something else on your other side. Okay, enough said, but we're looking real chill. All right, booyah. All right, hell yeah, we use the vacuum. We got it kind of vacuumed out. Everything else is kind of stuck in there, but I'm fine with that. And sweet. All right, booyah. All right, hell yeah, I'm real satisfied with this joint because we're gonna, pad this up. Even this little pocket, I'm gonna put all of these things in. And that looks pretty good, that pocket down there, but just that pocket's a little bit sharp. And then we got kind of like a 3-layer wrap around here. And I think we even have more. No, this 3-layer wrap. This one is kind of complex. We got that going on. We have that one down there. And then we even have kind of 2 layers right there to kind of fill in that kind of weirdness. And so hell yeah. And then this one. And then we have kind of that same setup, 3 little pieces to kind of fill in a void right there. All right, let's do it. All right, hell yeah. So these worked out real good, and I kind of worked on, how to fill in gaps like paper mache style, and so we kind of have that going on. But yeah, so hopefully those nubbins work pretty good. So it's kind of an experiment to use the expanding foam, but I kind of dig how that turned out. And so, hell yeah, I guess a little bit more water dynamics, right there. Not as sharp, maybe. And so, cool. All right, so we have that ribbon, and I'm just going to go for it. I'm kind of done. I really don't want to fill in anymore, I don't think. And so I just want to, get that totally sealed. And I can even, yeah, so hell yeah. And if I think I need another go, we'll do another go. And so anyway, we're going to put that outside, lay it flat, juice it up, come in. We're just going to heavy on the juice, tack it, and then kind of be done. Yeah, I think that's a good method. Hopefully I'm not, missing out on something. But hell yeah, and hopefully it turns the corner and we don't have to make too much cuts. But I don't mind doing 2 ribbons right there. And so, obviously this is the interior, should be dry, but since we have this bow going on, now this is a prime place for saturation on those joints. And so, all right, let's do it. All right, hell yeah, this might be disastrous, but I think we can get it to the boat. Hell yeah. All right, hell yeah, that was wicked, dude. Glad this stuff isn't too fumy, but it probably smells pretty good. And so we heavy saturation. Now, one saturation isn't enough. I put it in and I have to saturate the other part anyway. And so I think going forward, I'll just saturate one and then saturate the other and just kind of mark where I'm going to put that in. It's fine to saturate it as I go. And then what really helps is to, then glue just the seam right there and the seam right there. That goes a long way to kind of push that in. And so I might come back in 10 minutes and hell yeah. And it's just so fascinating that this stuff dries so fast. Like over here, that was the last thing we did, and I really can't push it in. And there's no really sense to disturb it anyway. So I think it's kind of like a one-shot deal. So I might come through and just get kind of those little gaps. That's not too big of a deal though. Everything else looks real good. Hell yeah. Okay, and now I'm gonna come back out here, kind of talk about R1 boating. Get some fresh air. So, I have to go get another gallon of glue. So I'm up to 6 gallons, and so I am just very glad I did not do any epoxy because, even if you do, I think you can do 2 gallons. Well, I don't know. You can get tabletop epoxy. I think you can get 2 gallons for about $50. I might be mistaken though on that. I think it's 2 gallons for 90 or maybe 80, but typically 100, 120, even just for the tabletop epoxy. But hell yeah. But if I could get tabletop epoxy this stuff's $25. And so, but again, I wouldn't want to do like a huge boat like that. I would have to do it out here, on a nice day, and still you're going to be breathing fumes. Like, I think this stuff is a little bit fumey, actually, if you go for it, and it is a known carcinogen in there, so it's kind of interesting. And then the other aspect of this boat is it's got so many creases and corners that I just really had to go kind of heavy on those. And so that ate up quite a bit of glue. And so, after I learned something about this, essentially it's just that little footprint that's it, And so if I'm trying to just make a playboat, these 2 teeth are irrelevant for a playboat, not necessary at all. And so it really is just this back little corner. And so, if you look at it, this boat is only 7 feet 8 inches. And so if you really look at the underfoot, technically what I have created is a playboat, that it almost is. I'd be really curious to see if that's 6 feet from there to there. And I hope it is, because that's literally the length of a playboat. And it's just fascinating that this is where you actually sit on the back corner. And sure, you're going to get extra juice with that stern, but underfoot for rotations and all that, you have the profile of a playboat. Now, I did get a bunch of kayaks for I got a couple. I have 3. Yeah, let's do this, because I got 4 kayaks to work with, and people are just like, and I was even thinking of this. Hey, let's just use a kayak and then add on to it. But the crazy thing is these kayaks weigh 40 pounds, and so I have thought of, well, if the kayak weighs 40 pounds, but you could chisel off like half of it, and you're just down to about 20 pounds, if you could literally just use the hull and then, do foam in there, because you're going to have a self-bailing boat anyway, so you're going to have to fill it with foam. But I think once you cut it and fill it with foam, it's still back up to 30 pounds. I don't think I could get this down to 25 pounds. But if you could, you would do that, and then you would have the profile on the sides, like you would have that, and then you would attach, inflatable tubes. But it's just really fast. So this was, my thought going into it. I got one of these for 50. That one's really heavy. And then this one was 75, and then this one was 100. But I'm ready just to throw them back on Craigslist, because I don't think. And the cool thing is that going to Missoula is, I drive 2 hours to do this wave. And so my mind is not, I can test stuff in the lake, sure, who cares? But when it actually comes to would I take something to the wave, then that's like, Let's see if we can do this. Hell yeah. Um, so what I'm getting at is like, I'm only going to take the juiciest thing to the wave. And, even the fat cat, I'm not going to take to the wave. I'd take it to the Whitewater Center because that's the only thing I can use in North Carolina. Um, but even then, if I was at the Alabama Whitewater Center, I ain't taking the fat cat. It's too much boat. And if that's what I want to do is just kind of punch into holes and figure out stability. Um, but hell yeah. And so yeah, so with this, I definitely would take this to the whale. I'm very excited. Hell yeah, stoked. You know what I mean? We're gonna take this to the wave, and there could be a lot of aspects to it that it's a total flop. I can't actually see what would be a total flop. The total flop would be just this taking in water and then that not working. The other flop would be like when you sit back here, it's just way too rockered. We actually put in way too much rocker and the thing will just spin like a top and you can't get any tracking at all. And so if that's the case, I would have to build that back in and I would spend my time trying to lean onto this and to see how much edging you can get and how much speed you could get. But I'm hoping to take it. Um, and I hope it doesn't get waterlogged because I do want to keep this until next winter and do the same like little holes, like do the side surfing in the hole. I'm really interested about how this would do, and this might just be bee's knees, and I could even it might be even worth taking down to Kelly's in Idaho, which has a very easy, stable hole. You know what I mean, where you can just stay for days in it. And this would, and in that actually that hole, because you go sideways, this would see if you could release sideways. And so, hell yeah. So, and when I take it over the pass, it's going to have, we're going to have, oh, the neighbors always stare at me. Just because we look like this. It's all right though. But yeah, it's just kind of every time you look over, they're staring. So I mean, they have nothing better to look at. But it's just fascinating that when you do look, they're looking at you. It's like, and then because we look like this, you can always do that where you can just like stare at someone, be like, hell yeah, yep, still looking. Um, Usually people are looking at other things, not 80% of the time at this. But anyway, hell yeah. And so the plan might be to go to Missoula because if it does fill with water and all those, let's see. When I go into Idaho, I don't think there's a check station. Nah, there's a check station on the way to Kelly's. And so that's the only bummer is that if I do take it on the wave and then the lock saw, and if I did go on a little trip, and if it's still dry and I can get it to Kelly's Whitewater Park, it would have to be dry. It would have to have no mud in it. And I think we would be good. And even if it has, I mean, if it fills with water, I'm screwed anyway. I'm not paddling it. I think it would be too heavy. If it had a few, so I'll have to make sure it's dry. And so hopefully I could get to Kelly's if that was the plan. You can always do it in reverse and just bomb down to Kelly's and then come back on the lock saw. That might be a pretty sweet way to go. Just be like, hell yeah, get a little Kelly's Whitewater Park, do the lock saw on the way back, and then see if I could do it more at the wave in Missoula. And okay, hell yeah! Now I'm just excited because it's almost looking done. Hell yeah! All right, hell yeah! And I'm just so glad I'm kind of out of the funk of winter, and hopefully you guys are too. You know what I mean? Get a little sunshine, mow some yawn. I can't talk, whatever. But hell yeah, you get it. And working on not being a vampire is so hard though because my sleep schedule rolls forward. Even like right now, well, today, once a week, like my parents will take me out to breakfast, and we just go out to breakfast. Put it that way. So that's pretty sweet. We go to a little hippie spot. They love it. My dad talks about Ford F-350s. Nah, we try to be good, but Anyway, yeah, it's a cool little hippie little spot, a little hippie cafe. I'm too hippie for it. They're just like, no, that's too hippie. Yep. Anyway, that's interesting when you look like this. And I was in Colorado, went to a natural grocers, and they were just like, "What up? No, we did not. We got organic products, not organic people." And so, yeah, they were just like, "Oh, this is." I did not feel welcome at the natural grocers in Colorado. That's bizarre. And so obviously we have a creepy vibe, and so might as well lean in. You know what I mean? I forget what we're talking about. The sleep schedule, yeah, it kind of rolls forward. So yeah, breakfast. Get to wake up at 7:45. That was pretty good. Else, I've been rolling, waking up about 10, going to bed at 2, waking up at 10. But then that shifts because then I'll go to bed at 4, wake up at noon. Then I'll go to bed at 6, wake up at 2. And I can still mow lawns. You know, I'm kind of like half work here and then half work outside. And so it's a pretty sweet little deal. Um, yeah, it's really difficult for me to get on a sleep schedule. And it's just because I know whether I'm going to go to sleep or not. And that's true and not true. Sometimes it's true. Sometimes it's just like, well, try a little harder to go to sleep. And, um, and so I should do that. I don't, because if I do it my way, I just get sleep. And it's just like, oh, hell yeah, I get to sleep until I'm slept. And you want a person with mental illness to get their sleep. You know what I mean? So I do what I do. All right, hell yeah, we are super excited to do this one. Get it on the water. Um, I'm gonna I'm gonna fix right now. I think so. Do you see it? Yeah, that little crease. All right. Thanks for joining me. Booyah.